Hi everyone, this is Mona. Welcome to day 4 of the IMA for Beginners series. It's the final day, so you're almost through. Today we're going to be talking about maintenance in IMA. We will be recording the webinar for today, and just like all the other days this week, I will send you out the link to the video as well as the PowerPoint. So if you could test out your chat feature for today and answer the following question. Which maintenance task do you struggle with the most? And be sure to send the chat to all participants. If you just send it to the host, I won't be able to view that since I'm spinning at the moment. But just let me know what maintenance task do you struggle with the most. And we'll come back to that in a minute. So just as a reminder for some etiquette, I think I hear a few microphones open right now. If you could please remember to put your microphone or your telephone on mute when you're not speaking, I would really appreciate it. It really helps to cut down on the background noise. If you're accessing the audio through your computer, most likely your computer's microphone is open, so you can go to Control Panel, Sound, and Recording tab to manage the microphone on your computer. Please wait to audibly ask questions until designated times indicated by the blue bubble graphic. I will have a lot of different points throughout the presentation today for audible questions. Otherwise, if you think of something and you just want to go ahead and ask, you can use the chat at any point. Again, make sure you're sending it to all participants and not just the host so that I can see that. Let's see. And so I asked what maintenance tasks do you struggle with the most. I did get a few responses. It looks like most of you are brand new and haven't really done any maintenance. And Samantha, I think I've seen this request once before where you asked if I could speak up, but the recording sounds, the audio seems good on the recording, so it might be your phone if you're able to speak up. But I will make a conscientious effort to speak loudly through the presentation today. But I do apologize for that. But see if you can turn your phone or your headset up as well. Alright, so yeah, it looks like most of you are pretty new to the process and haven't really done much maintenance. So if you haven't done a lot of maintenance, you're probably going to find today to maybe be a bit information overload because we are covering a lot of topics, but you will be able to review the video at any point later on down the road when you need to do these tasks where you can go back and see, oh, how did I do that? We also have some documentation prepared for some of the things we're covering today, some of the tasks we're covering, and we also have the IMA Help Desk available so that, let's say, it gets 2 months down the road and then you need to do some of these maintenance processes. I know it can be difficult to remember when you don't do it for 2 months, so you can always call into our Help Desk, and they're also happy to walk you through. So if I'm not able to answer your question today, or if it's something where I need more information or more details, please, as usual, email ventureuniversity@searshc.com. I know I've gotten a few questions through email from some of you that have been attending, and I've been doing my best to try to help you find answers to your questions. Again, if you are just joining, which you shouldn't be, my name's Mona, and I work on the vendor and item support team, and I do the instructional design and training. On Monday, we covered IMA basics and terminology. Tuesday, we actually covered day 3, the IMA features. Yesterday, we went over the day 2 content, setting up new items in IMA with the new item grid. And today, we're covering maintenance. So a lot of questions that we get asked, how do I add a new carton to an existing item or change a carton configuration? How do I add a vendor pack to an existing item or duplicate an existing vendor pack? How do I add new ship points to my order guns or change the ship points for the DCs? How do I update dimensions? We're going to cover all of that today. So we're going to look at UPC changes, new cartons and updating configurations, new vendor packs, ship points, dimensions, and weights. So first up with UPC changes. My item is operational with the incorrect UPC. How do I fix it? It really depends on the buyer's preferences. If the buyer requires the same KSN, then inventory has to strip the UPC and put the correct UPC back on. If the buyer does not require the same KSN, then you can go ahead and just sync over a new carton with data sync. And just make sure to include the correct UPC at that point. So this is going to require communication both with your buying team and possibly your inventory team, especially if the buyer requires the same KSN, because inventory is the one that owns those UPCs once they get put into the system, because they involve a lot of our reporting and tracking, and so they have to be able to steer whether or not UPCs can be removed from existing items. So again, just make sure to communicate with your buying team and possibly inventory before deciding on a course of correction. So any questions about UPC changes? Okay, we're going to move on to carton configuration changes. There are several reasons for updating carton configurations. It could be that the original carton setup is incorrect. It was not set up to begin with. Or perhaps your merchant or inventory would like additional cartman assortment options. So they may want to be able to order an assortment of 6 or an assortment of 9, or they might change their minds on what they want to order. Let's say they order the assortment of 6 for 3 months, and then after that they're not going to order that one anymore at all. They would still have to get a new carton with that correct configuration set up. So the process for changing the configuration depends on whether it's in process or operational. If it's in process and it's an incorrect original carton setup, you can actually correct that on the grid in the vendor role. If you have already approved that past the vendor role, then you need to contact your merchant or inventory analyst and ask them to return those items if they are not yet operational. You won't be able to correct them until they return them to the vendor role. Now, if they are operational, for the most part, we are not able to do carton configuration changes on existing items. There are a few exceptions, but for the most part, it can't be done. So if your item is operational and you need to change the carton configuration, you have to sync over a new carton with the correct configuration. So, and I wanted to show you how to do, how to update the carton configuration for an in-process item. So I have a grid out here for me to access. So if you want to update the carton configuration, you won't see it in the default view on an in-process item. In order to find the fields, you have to go to the Packages tab. And then it's actually called member quantity. That's what the package configuration field is called, member quantity. So then, right now, this is a 6-pack. Let's say we wanted that to be an 8-pack. We wanted each UPC to have 2 in the assortment. You just update it, and then you would click Save. It's really simple. It's not complicated at all. You just have to remember where it's located. Again, it's on the Packages tab up here on the left. So any questions about updating carton configurations? Okay, Anne is asking, once the item is operational, can we update the case dimensions using the grid instead of syncing over from OneWorld Sync? I don't think that you can update the dimensions using the grid. I think you have to do it in single edit, and we will be going through that later today. So I'll be able to show you that, and we'll be able to double check to make sure you can't do it in the grid. But I know you can do the dimension exception indicator in the grid, but I don't think you can update the actual dimensions in the grid on an operational item. But I will show you how to do that manually. Okay, moving on, we're going to talk about new cartons. There are a few reasons why you might need new cartons. It could be that there is a change in the carton configuration, which we recently touched on. It could be that a new vendor will be supplying an existing item. So in the instance that vendor A has been supplying a specific product and they're going to stop supplying it, but vendor B is going to come in and start supplying that same exact product, not only do they need their own vendor pack, but they also need their own carton. Another reason you might need an additional carton is for promotional displays. So do remember that any time that you create a new carton, you also have to create a new vendor pack. Because if you don't create a new vendor pack, that new carton won't be able to be ordered. And I believe the system actually gives a hard error if you try to only create a new carton without a new vendor pack. You'll get a hard error where it won't allow you to approve it. So the most common errors when adding a new carton, the UPCs match the incorrect quantity, the carton dimensions do not align with the eaches, or vendor packs were not created for new exploding assortment members. So if you add on an each, carton, then that will also require not an each carton. If you add a new each package, there we go. That will also require a new each carton for the new configuration, and then both the each package and the new carton will have to have new vendor packs created for them. Now the process for creating new cartons depends on how you set up your items. Most of you should be doing data synchronization. As we've gone over, there are exceptions. So if you do each packages, each cartons, uniform cartons, and exploding assortment cartons, you should sync those new cartons over from your data sync provider. Don't create them manually. If you sync them over, the process is it's much simpler. It takes out more of the manual entry, so there's less room for error. It's more efficient. So if you have, so whenever you sync over the new cartons, one of the pluses is that it also syncs over new vendor packs. So if you were to manually create new cartons, you'd also have to manually create the new vendor packs. So by syncing it over, you're actually taking out some of those extra steps. Now, if you do assorted cartons, mixed cartons, or pallet cartons, or you're one of the rare vendors that do not use data synchronization for the other cartons, could be that you're a vendor that's been with us for a really long time, you cannot sync over new cartons for those specific types. You have to build them manually in IMA along with a corresponding vendor pack. So I am going to walk through the process of building both a uniform carton and an exploding assortment carton. Just in case maybe you're in a pinch and the data sync company is down and you're not able to sync over your items and you have to do them manually, and it's not something that you can wait on. I do just want to walk you through those. I don't expect you to remember every step, but you can always come back and look at the video, and we do have some of these documented out there as well. So first I'm going to show you how to add a uniform carton. So after you do a quick search for your item, you can go to the Packages tab. And then up here at the top, you will see this drop-down. We want to add a uniform carton, which is UCRT, and I'm going to click Add Package. So then you have to enter your shipping marking number. Your division is usually already selected. Then you have to select your vendor information. And once you do that, if you have multiple order dones, you can select the order dones that you want to use. But I think it usually selects the one that should be defaulted. And then you can verify your category. and then select a subcategory. And then click Add Package. So it loads up this page, and you have to complete all of the fields that have the red asterisk. So we're going to enter a description. And then you have to select the member that you want to add to this uniform carton, and then click Add. So you can see here it added that member to the carton. And this is a uniform carton, so that's the only one that can be added. We're going to do a uniform carton of 10. And then down here you can see total eaches, eaches per inner, number of inners. Well, if you're just putting these 10 items into a box, you would just enter the total quantity for the number of inners and then click Save. Now, if you do want to use inner cartons, let's say you want to have 2 inner cartons in the uniform carton, you can enter 2. And once you click Save, it's going to update the total eaches and the eaches per inner. So here we say our total eaches are 10. And then there are 5 eaches per inner, and there are 2 inners. Now, you have to make sure that the division works out correctly. If we were to put something like 3 inners, and it's supposed to be a total eaches of 10, it'll calculate the eaches per inner as 3. But when you go to approve this, you're actually going to get a hard error that prevents you from approving it because the total eaches 10 is not divisible by 3. So make sure that you do enter something that is properly divisible. And then moving on down, you will see the dimensions and weights. So keep in mind, because this is a carton, it should not equal your dimensions and weights exactly with the uniform carton. You have to take into account the quantity that you're putting into the carton. So I had already looked at the dimensions and weights for the eaches and calculated those. And so once you enter those, you can click Save. And now if we go to the Workflow tab, if we try to approve it, if we check for errors, you will see that we will get an error for the missing vendor pack because you have to create a vendor pack to go along with your carton. So we're going to come back to this in a minute after we do the vendor pack section and add a vendor pack. So that's how you add a uniform carton. So I also want to show you how to add an exploding assortment because the process is a little bit different. Instead of doing a quick search for an existing KSN and then going to the Package tab and choosing to add a carton, you come up here over Create in the menu, and then you click Exploding Assortment because that's what we want to create in this instance. Again, you get this screen. This one should look similar, and you enter your shipping G10 here. And then you can select your, because this is a brand new item, basically you have to select your division. It's not populated for you this time. And then you enter your vendor information. Again, be sure to select the DUNS with ORD. Do not select the DUNS with PAY, pay. Otherwise, you won't be able to, your item won't be able to get set up properly. So, and then for category, you just select the correct category of your item. And you select your subcategory. Then you click Add Package. So in this screen, it's asking, are you wanting to create a carton or a pallet? We want to create a carton. So I'm going to click Create Package. And then it's asking for a description. Brand, you do not have to enter. Technically, cartons don't require the brand attribute. So you don't have to enter the brand, but you can if you would like to. You do have to select the EAS tag required indicator fields. And then click Save. Okay, so now we can see that we have this new package page. We can see under package type, exploding assortment carton. And we can see our description is completed from where we filled it in on the previous page along with your shipping marking number. But we don't have any eaches on this exploding assortment yet. So to add eaches, you have to click the Search for Assortment Members, and it's going to open up in a new window. And then you can type in your KSNs that you want to add. Once you search for it, to add it, you select the box on the left side under Action and click Add Members. I'm going to add 2 more. And let's do 1 more. And there are a few different fields that you can use to search. You could also search by KSN description, marking number, or vendor stock number. So now that we've selected those eaches and we've added those to this exploding assortment, they display here, and we can update the quantity. I'm going to update it to 333. And then if we go further down, just like with the uniform carton, we do have to enter the dimensions and weights for the exploding assortment. So once you've completed that information, then you have to click Save. And then you can click the Workflow tab and check for errors. Just like with the other one, we did get an error because we also have to create the vendor pack. So that's how you create both a uniform carton and an exploding assortment carton. So any questions about cartons? And then we're going to move on to vendor packs. So Yvonne is asking, say there are 3 eaches and the total weight for all 3 eaches is 6 pounds. Is the weight of the carton 6 pounds, or do you have to add the weight of the carton also? It's a good question. Usually most cartons don't weigh that much. So as far as the rules in IMA go, it has to add up exactly compared to the eaches. If there's 3 eaches total in the carton and and the total weight for the 3 eaches is 6 pounds, so they weigh 2 pounds each, then the carton weight in IMA would have to be 6. So the weight of the carton doesn't really have to be taken into account. Now, if you do include like a display or something extra in the carton that adds weight, then you would have to take that into account, especially with dimensions as well. So does that make sense? But for the most part, the weight of the carton, I believe, is negligible. So it's whatever the actual pieces going into the carton weigh, and then the carton does have to match up exactly according to the IMA rules. It's a good question. Okay, so now we're going to move on to vendor packs. So my merchant or inventory analyst has requested that I create a new vendor pack for an existing item. Why would I need to create a new vendor pack? We kind of touched on this on Monday during the IMA Basics and Terminology. Some of the reasons why could be that you need a new flow type, or maybe an additional store format, such as Sears to Kmart. Could be that it's going to be a different vendor supplying the item, a change in carton configurations or new each/member, or more than one cost. So if there's a new carton or a new each package, those have to have new vendor packs. but there are additional reasons that you could need a new vendor pack other than new cartons or new eaches. So the most common errors when adding a new vendor pack, the desired ship point is not available to select. The DUNS number is not set up for the correct format, or it's not set up for the correct flow. Now you can contact vendmain@searshc.com if you do run into that situation. Also, your merchant could put in a request to have the format or flow added to your DUNS. So for the process, if you do use data sync, you shouldn't really be building them manually. It's best to sync them over with the existing UPC. If you do set items up manually, you must add or duplicate a vendor pack from the vendor pack tab in IMA. And that's what I'm going to show you next. Okay, so with the previous example that we were just doing, I just added a vendor pack. And now I want to add actually, let's go back to, I want to go back to the uniform carton, because that's what I had planned. Okay, so here you can see we did a quick search for the item we just added the carton for. You can see it's in the vendor role. If you were to click on the Changes tab, you can see that this was created by me, that's my ID, and that there's a new uniform carton. So we would know that that new uniform carton also needs a new vendor pack, which is what we're going to do. So you can click on the vendor pack tab and then click Add Vendor Pack. So it loads the blank vendor pack page. For shipping package, now because this is a uniform carton, you have to select the package, and you actually have a choice. You don't always have a choice on which package to select. So in this instance, we know the uniform carton is new, so that's the one that needs the vendor pack, so that's what I'm going to select. And then you select your DUNS number. Again, be sure to select order DUNS, not pay DUNS. And after you select your DUNS number, you can select your flow type. And your primary store format. And then if you scroll further down, you have to enter a projected first in-store date. You also have to answer the California Prop 65 questions. Enter a vendor stock number, order quantity multiple, and the order quantity unit of measure. And then if you scroll further down, here you can see these are the DC locations for the tier group that defaulted for this item. Now up at the top, you can see that there's this tier group filled. You cannot change that. Used to, the vendor would select this like a few years ago, but a few years ago they did an update to the system where the tier group is now defaulted based upon the DUNS number and the flow type. So you do not have to worry about the tier group anymore. If you're an existing vendor and you're working with someone else at your company who's been there a long time, you don't actually have to worry about the tier group anymore. You don't have to select it. So if you scroll down, you do have to enter some information about the DCs under those tier groups. So here you have ship point and vendor cost. Well, some of these tier groups have multiple locations. This one only has 2. But I do want to show you how you can enter that information one time for all of the locations in the instance that there are several DCs for that tier group. So up here in this tier group box, you can select your ship point. You can enter your cost. And remember, this is the cost of the uniform carton, not the each. And then click Apply to All. it'll ask for confirmation, in which you can click OK. And then if you scroll down, you can see that it populated those for you. So once you complete all of these builds, you can click Save. And then we're going to click the Workflow tab, and we're going to check for errors. And I believe it should all be good, to be green and clean. Yep, so there's just a warning, and you can ignore warnings. So if you get a warning, you can just select Approve, and then click Submit and ignore warnings. Okay, so that we added our vendor pack for our uniform carton. Now I also want to add the vendor pack for the exploding assortment carton that we created. Give me 1 second. I missed something. 55, 105. There we go. Okay, I'm going to go through this one a little bit faster. So this was a brand new exploding assortment. We click Add Vendor Pack. We're going to select our shipping package. Then we're going to enter our DUNS. And this time for flow type, I'm going to select DSD. And then I'm going to select Kmart for the primary store format. And then come down here to cost. Okay. Vendor stock number, order quantity multiple, and the unit of measure, your projected first insert date. And then now, if you scroll down further, I wanted to show you that you do not have the tier group selections. You don't select any ship points for DSD. So with DC or a lot of the other flow types, you have to select your ship points. You also have to enter your cost for each of the individual DCs. With the SD, you do not have to do that. You don't select any ship points because there are none. It's not going to the DCs. So that's all you have to do for DSD. So you would click Save, and then go to the Workflow tab and check for errors and approve. So any questions about, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to show you one more scenario. So hold your questions for just another minute. I'm going to show you how to duplicate a vendor pack versus adding one from scratch. Okay, so to duplicate a vendor pack, instead of clicking the Add Vendor Pack button, click the Vendor Pack hyperlink of the existing vendor pack. And then the Duplicate Vendor Pack button is on the top right of the screen. So it loads up this new page. And here, if you need to duplicate multiple vendor packs, let's say you've been shipping DC and your inventory team wants you to add a DSD vendor pack, an offshore vendor pack. You can add both of those at the same time. So you can use the drop-down selection to select your ownership code, and then you can enter your DUNS. Once you've entered your DUNS, you can select your flow type, then your primary store format, the package that this vendor pack is for. So you can do additional ones. You can even add more lines. But once you've entered all your information, you can click Create Duplicates. And it will load this page. Now you're not done at that point. You still have to click the vendor pack number hyperlink of the vendor pack that you just created, because there are a few fields that you have to update. So if you scroll down, you will see your projected first insert date is back in 2010. That's going to give you a hard error. Your projected first insert date cannot be any older than 3 months in the past. So since we duplicated it, it kept the projected first insert date of that previous vendor pack. So we're just going to update that. Here, your information on the left side is filled in and completed. You do have to enter or answer your California Proposition 65 questions. And then that would be it for this one since it's a DSD. If it was DC, you would have to go down and select your ship points. But once you've saved, then you can go to your Workflow tab and you can approve the vendor pack. So any questions about vendor packs? Can you delete a vendor pack if one's been set up incorrectly? It depends if it is operational or if it's in process. Now, if it's in process, you can delete a vendor pack by going back out to the vendor pack tab. And if you can be deleted, you will see this box here on the left side. And then you can just select that and click Delete Selected. Now, if the vendor pack is operational, there is no way that it can be deleted. So if there's something wrong with the vendor pack that cannot be changed, such as the flow type or the DUNS, then you would have to create a new vendor pack with the correct information. So any other questions? Okay, then we will move on to new ship points. So there's a few different reasons for ship point changes. It could be that one of your shipping locations has closed, or maybe you have adjusted your route for a better deal. For example, you might have different ship points for different DCs. You may have a warehouse located in New Jersey and one in California. Well, it doesn't really make sense to ship from your New Jersey warehouse all over the country if you have a warehouse in California and it's going to a DC in California. So you can actually set up different ship points for different DCs. The most common errors when changing a ship point is selecting the incorrect one, or your desired ship point isn't available. It's not in that drop-down list. So if your ship point is not available in that drop-down, you have to submit a request through the vendor portal. If you go to the vendor portal and go to the IMA tab, down a little bit on the screen you will see ship point changes, and below that there is a link to click here to add, change, or remove a ship point. And it will take you to a form. You can complete the form, and once you submit it, they will work on getting that processed. It may take a few business days to get that added to your DUNS, but they will notify you when it has been added. So just be aware it's not an instantaneous change. So to change a ship point, do a quick search to locate your item and then click the Vendor Packs tab. You're going to click on the hyperlinked vendor pack number, and then you're going to scroll down the page, and then on the left side above the tier group, there's a Change DC Locations that you want to select. Once you've selected that, you can click Create Change Request. So this page will load, and if you remember when we created a vendor pack, how you could use that tier group section to make changes and apply it to all of the DCs for that tier group, it's the same thing here. You're going to go through this box. You can select your new ship point and click Apply to All. It's going to ask if you are sure you want to apply it to all. And you can click OK and then click Save and go to Next. Now, if you want to apply different ship points to different DC locations, You have to scroll further down the page, and I'm actually going to go into a live demo to show you that. So we will get there right now. Okay, so all right, so you want to click on your vendor pack tab and then click into the vendor pack number hyperlink. Then we're going to scroll down the page. Here's our change DC locations. We're going to select that and click create change request. So instead of entering information in this section here, because we want to apply different ship points for different DCs, we are going to scroll down. And here you can see the tier group that this vendor pack is set up for. So you're going to click that plus sign, and it's going to explode the information out. So now we can see all of the DC locations for the RSC tier. Here you can see this is the old value, and this is the new. So for ship point, right now they're both set up for Dayton, New Jersey. But let's say that one's actually supposed to be Carson, and the other is supposed to be Bayonne. So you can select different ship points for those different DCs, and then just click Save and go to Next. It'll automatically take you to the Workflow tab, at which point you can check for errors and approve. Now, if you do use multiple ship points for your items, be aware that you cannot set it up that way during the initial item setup. When you're setting up items in the grid, you can only select a single ship point for all of your DCs. So if you need to set that up, just go ahead and select one of them. And then once your item becomes operational, you can go on and do this change request to change the ship point for any of the DCs. So any questions at all about ship points? Or ship point changes, I should clarify. Okay. We will move on to dimensions and weights then. So there's a few reasons why you might need to change your dimensions and weights. It could be that the items are so old they're wrong. Either they've changed since you entered the information, the information may have been right initially, or you entered the information in wrong to begin with, but our system didn't catch it at that time because we did not have the rules in place for dimensions and weights. They've only had the rules in place for dimensions and weights for maybe 5 or so years. I'm not certain exactly, but it's not been too long. So if you have really old items you work with, it's very possible that they were wrong to begin with, but the system didn't have the the error check in place. There we go. So the most common error is when changing dimensions and weights. Again, creating the change but forgetting to approve it. That goes with most change requests. Or calculating the cube incorrectly. So to update it depends on the process that you use. If you use data sync, it's probably easiest to sync it over. You can sync it over for each packages, each cartons, uniform cartons, and exploding assortment cartons. So you would sync over the new dimensions and or weights from your data sync provider for those existing UPCs. And if you have old items in IMA that were created before you started using data sync, you can actually do a sync process to get those old items in IMA into your data sync account, so that moving forward you could actually sync over changes for those items that you had originally built manually in IMA. So if that's something you'd like to do, I would reach out to your data sync provider contact for some more instructions. But that is possible, and some of our vendors have been doing that. For assorted cartons, mixed cartons, and pallet cartons, those cannot be synced over, and they have to be updated manually in IMA. You may also update manually in IMA if like I'd been saying, your items are older and they don't even exist in your DataSync account yet. Or if you just need to make a quick change and it's just for 1 or 2 items, you may just want to go in and do those manually just to save some time. We did talk about the exemption indicator on Monday. Remember, if you have something that is nested or compressed, or if you have the display, then you may need to apply the dimension exception indicator. So to update it on operational items, you would go to the Packages tab for a single item, or you can use the Changes grid to update for multiple items at a time. So again, you can do that for up to 50 items through the Changes grid. To do it on a single item, you would click your Package tab and then select really any of these fields. It doesn't have to be the dimension exception indicator. Same thing if you're wanting to update the weight or your depth, width, or height, you can select any of these fields. You don't have to select all of them because they're connected together. And then click Create Change Request. So if you're updating the dimension exception indicator, you would click Yes down here from the drop-down. If you want to update your dimensions, you can do that right here. So basically everything on the left side of the screen are old values. Everything on the right side of the screen right here where you can change it, those are going to be your new values. So that's how you can update those manually. Then you would click Save and go to Next. To do it on the grid for the dimension exception indicator, you can just select dimension exception indicator and then copy and paste your KSNs, your G10s, or your core div item numbers and click Create Grid. And I am double checking, and just like I thought, you can't actually change the dimensions and weights in the grid for operational items. Those would have to be done manually, or you would have to. I know I had a question earlier about that, so I just wanted to double check. So when you go into your new item grid, here you would just change the dimension exception indicator field to Y, and then click Approve. So any questions about your dimension exception indicator or updating dimensions? Okay, so I am going to do a quick grid, changes grid demo from day 3. Since I had to do day 3 on Tuesday and there was an issue with the system, I couldn't do the demo for the changes grid. And I did want to cover that because a lot of our vendors really find the grid to be very useful. So to do the changes grid, you come over here, hover over Data Catalog, and then go to Change Existing Items. And it's going to load the page. I'm going to grab my KSNs real quick while it's doing that. Okay. So on this page, you select the fields that you want to update up here. We are going to select the dimension exception indicator, and we're going to select the vendor stock number. And how about the purchase status? Because some vendors like to update their purchase statuses on the vendor packs that they own. Then you would paste your information here and click Create Grid. And it's going to ask you to name your grid. It does take a second sometimes to load. The more items you have on your grids, the longer it takes, especially for the initial load. So just be patient. Once you name it, you click Save. And then you can see here, if we scroll over, it brought in some extra fields because some of the fields are grouped together. So I had selected the dimension exception indicator. And if you remember, I mentioned those are grouped with your dimensions and weight fields. So it brought those fields in so that you can view them, but you will see that they are grayed out. And when something is grayed out like that, and you can also see there's no box up here for you to select, that means that you can't actually change anything for that field. So I did want to clarify that just so that you didn't see it and maybe get excited that you could change the dimensions and weights through the grid. You cannot. So it'll be grayed out, but it does bring those because they're grouped with the dimension exception indicator. So you would just select the change that you want to make. You can use that double arrow again to drop down all of the changes to the eaches. And if we scroll further over, we can see our purchase status. We're going to change that. Normally, if you're changing something unavailable, it's not going to be ordered anymore, but I just wanted to show you how to do that because some vendors like to keep up with their vendor packs. If you want to change a ship point, when you change it, it's only going to change it for all of the DCs, just like I had mentioned. You can't do different DCs with different ship points using the grid. But you can, if you just want to, if one of your locations close and you just want to change it for all of the DC locations, you could do that with the changes grid. And then here, it brought these in because they're grouped. So if this was a Sears item, you could always update your cost here. I'm not going to do that one right now, but I am going to change the vendor stock number. I think that was all that I really wanted to change. Now, if there are additional fields that you would like that you forgot to select, you can always go directly to the tab that it's located on, and you could select it. See, now it's green, which means I can update that. If I were to click the Changes view right up here, it's going to bring me back to the default view, and it's going to bring that new selection with it. I'm not going to change that right now because we're starting to run out of time, but I'm going to go ahead and click Approve, and it processes just like it would for a new item grid. It'll go through queuing and then processing, and it'll either come back with errors or it'll show that it's completed. So I did want to make sure that I showed you the changes grid demo. So some key points for today. If a carton configuration is incorrect, you must create a new carton with the correct configuration. It's not something that can typically be corrected on the back end after it becomes operational. You have to do a new carton configuration, a new carton for the updated configuration. A new carton always requires a new vendor pack, and a new vendor pack does not necessarily require a new carton. It is best practice to sync over new cartons and vendor packs rather than creating them manually, although it is sometimes required to do them manually. Before fixing an incorrect UPC, communicate with your buyer to determine whether the same KSN is required. And then you must wait until an item is operational before you can select different ship points for different DCs. So before we go on to the survey, does anyone have any questions at all about today's session with the maintenance? Any of the topics that we covered? Okay, well, if you think of something, you can feel free to email me at vendoruniversity@searshc.com. But I also wanted to let you know I will be sending out a link to a survey, and I would really, really like to get your feedback. We want to know how you're liking the webinar series, because we used to do this on-site, and on-site it was nice because you could get hands-on training, and that's just not something we have the capability to do webinar. But we do want to know how it's working for you, if you're getting some good information from it, how you think we can improve. We also want to know what other topics you're looking for webinars. So please complete the survey. I would really appreciate it. And again, if you have any questions at all, please just email me at vendoruniversity@searshc.com. But I hope you guys have a great weekend, and it's been great going through the course with you this week. And have a great day. I'll hang on the line for about 5 minutes or so in case you have any additional questions.